What's up, everyone? Welcome in to another episode of the Dairyland Drive. Colin Talbert, as always, with the dynamic duo Riley Ashe and Mike Schneider. Going to talk a little bit more defense today for our Green Bay Packers. Last week we talked a little secondary. This week we're going to go in the big boys, down in the trenches, on the defensive line, interior and on the edge, and then we have a fun final drive segment to wrap things up that I know all three of us had fun researching and looking up, and I'm excited to see how that all comes about. But before we get started, Riley, Mike, I don't know what it was like down in Illinois or over in La Crosse, but man, what a beautiful weekend and a beautiful Monday. Finally starting to get some nice weather to get outside and get some fresh air, eh?
Yes, sir. Finally got my first 2 rounds of golf in this last week, so got my first sunburn on Saturday, so feeling good.
Yeah, I was actually up in Wisconsin on Saturday in Madison visiting my brother and just doing Mother's Day stuff while we were all together. So hitting some breweries and stuff. So yeah, nice weather.
Good, great, or awful, Mike, for your first rounds of golf? Just put it in one word.
The same.
The same. Okay. That was about, I had my first round last week as well. We got a group of guys up here that were doing like a kind of like a little mini golf league with the same guys at different courses every week. And it was just our first round. And it was certainly the first round. So it was good to get out though, but definitely have to work some of the rust off, I think, till we get back to full swing. But
Yep.
Well, cool. Well, let's jump right into it. First things first, the schedule will release in a couple of days. I know all of us are excited about that. Going to talk about that and break it down next week. Did get one game released today. The Packers will be in Chicago in December, the week before Christmas. And again, we will break down all 17 regular season games next week and kind of put a full episode along with talking linebackers. But I think one of the biggest and most important position groups going into this 2025 season is going to be that defensive line. That's what we're going to break down today, both the interior and on the edge. A lot of guys back. Really, you're looking at a couple, losses. TJ Slayton, I know, just in the run game inside, that big body on the one tech is a big loss to replace. I put down like Preston Smith-ish. I know he was gone. Didn't do a whole big season or a whole full season with the Packers, but just trying to at least put something in that slot of losses. Pretty much a lot of the same guys back on the interior and the edge, but this was maybe one of the most underperforming groups, I think, of 2024. The funny thing about it, though, is when you look at the stats, pressures, and I really tried to dig into this and get like the full pressures, and this is just from the defensive line, so this doesn't count like any like Quay Walker or Ed Cooper or any of the safeties coming up. 143 total pressures, which was in the top half of the league still, 14th in the league. And then sacks, 45 total, which was tied 8th in the league. So I was a little surprised, kind of just like looking at that. I didn't think it was going to be that high. I thought they would maybe be in the top half. I didn't think sacks were going to be in the top 10. Rushing yards allowed per game, 99.4. Which was 7th in the league, and we already talked about points allowed and total allowed last year. But some newcomers, Warren Brinson, Nazir Stackhouse, I think those are two guys that could potentially make the roster on the interior, and then Barron Sorrell, Colin Oliver, all 4 rookies that they added via the draft. No free agent acquisitions there on the defensive line. So all these returning guys and some of these rookies. So we'll start with you, Riley. On paper, this defensive line, with not really adding a veteran presence, I know we've talked about this in past episodes of really wanting to bring a veteran presence in some capacity, if it is in the interior on the edge. How are you just feeling overall looking at this group, seeing a lot of the same names, and really Goody and LaFleur have said, we're going to be better, and it's going to be these guys that are coming back that we're going to kind of have that, being improved, from the inside of the organization. What do you think?
I mean, I think we've all been pretty clear since we started this podcast. We're not the highest on this group, but just how Goody's talked, how I thought right away with when they fired the deep line coach they had and brought in the new one that they thought the talent was there, kind of like what you said. I mean, I think it's hard to say that most Packers fans don't like 3 out of the 4. You know, you got Rashawn Gary. Could he be better? Yeah, but he still does produce. Kenny Clark had probably his worst year of his career last year, but he is Kenny Clark. He's had years. He makes plays. And then we've seen flashes of Devontae Wyatt, and I'm assuming they obviously think he's going to make a big jump this year. They picked up his 5th-year option, so they're kind of committing to him for the next couple of years for sure. Um, where they fall off on is that other true end, right? I'm assuming it's going to be Enoch Barre is going to get the first shot at it, just like he finished last year, unless the new coach sees something in Van Ness that, I mean, we haven't, and I mean, you guys both know, and everybody knows that I freaking hate him. I think he sucks. Just no, he just has lived his entire life off of just being stronger and faster for his size. Everybody else, and just does not translate in the NFL, and that's what we've shown. He has just no creativity in any pass rush moves. So yeah, I'm happy with 3 out of the 4. I'm just really hopeful that, I mean, I think Baron Sorrells obviously has the body type to be the guy that could step in and actually be a 3-down guy and just be that other guy. So maybe he'll come out of nowhere and take that other job by storm. But yeah, Gary and then Kenny Clark, I think they're going to move him to a nose. That one tech that I've talked about, and Devontae Wyatt, they're committing him to the 3 tech. I'm happy with those 3 for what they are. But yeah, I really wish they would have went out and got another legit, like, this is our 4th defensive lineman, our 2nd edge, whatever, and to be that consistent every down guy that we just don't have. And I don't really know that I see, unless, like I said, Burrell comes out of nowhere and just takes the job.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, how much of a difference maker is this new position coach gonna make? Colin, you brought up the 45 sacks number from last year. You were kind of surprised at. I looked into that as well. And 20 of those sacks came against the Titans, the Seahawks, and the Dolphins. And if you look at their 5 regular season losses to the Eagles, the Lions, and the Vikings, they only had 7 sacks in those. So I think that 45 sack number is a little deceiving. But I don't know. I don't know that I'm quite as happy with the group as Riley maybe is. I mean, I think Gary, I think he's fine as a player. I don't think he's like your bona fide superstar number 1 edge rusher that you would like. I'm still holding out a fool's hope that they'll somehow land Trey Hendrickson. And like I said, that's probably a fool's hope, but he made some noise again today that there's been no communication from the Bengals since the draft. So maybe he's still trying to angle his way out of there, and maybe Goody can pull some levers with draft picks for next year. Who knows? I'm probably just being delusional at this point. But I think Gary is more of like that 1B kind of number 2 edge rusher who I think would probably have a little more production if he had someone else to help make him better. I don't feel like he makes the other guys around him better. I'm in the same boat as Riley when it comes to Lucas Van Ness. I mean, first round pick, 13th overall. 2 years in, you haven't shown a lick of anything. I feel like as someone with that high of a draft pick, you got to be producing. I mean, he's getting outsnapped by Brenton Cox last year. I mean, that's awful. Kenny Clark, yeah, I mean, he's still young, 10 years. I still think he has it in him. I think the toe injury really hampered him last year. So hopefully he can make a solid rebound this year. And yeah, I liked what I heard out of Baron Sorrell when he got drafted. I said when he was drafted, I think he's going to work his ass off every day and be the best that he can be. But what does that ultimately add up to? Who knows?
Yeah, and I think you kind of made a good point there where if you just kind of look back at the season, there was a couple games that you mentioned. I know the Titans game they had like what how many there? I mean, there was a like big chunk, yeah, like 8 sacks, but there was never really like those big games, the like needing timely plays from that defensive front. It just always came up empty. It seemed like if there was any big play from the Packers defense, it always came from the back end. Typically, it came from McKinney, maybe other guys, some of the linebackers. Um, so like if you look at it that way, in theory, you could only go up. I mean, if you're not really making plays in any of the big games,
Let's hope.
you have to improve at least in that capacity. And yes, going back to Lucas Van Ness, my biggest gripe with him is, yes, if you're a first round pick at this point, you should figure it out. But like, at least make flashes. Like, can you remember like a Lucas Van Ness game at all? Like the last 2 years, where at least there was just a handful of plays in the game, you're like, okay, this guy maybe has it. Like maybe he's going to develop tools, or maybe he's going to figure it out. I can't think of one game where there was like just flashes of what Lucas Van Ness could be, or at least a little bit of the talent. It's just he's just like a guy. Like he seems to me like a guy that's maybe a day 3 selection that you would maybe come in that kind of is like a tweener. Because I always thought he was a tweener. I didn't think he was like a true edge guy, and I don't think he's big enough to play inside at the 3 techniques. So I don't know. That was my biggest gripe with him. I know Goody, when he drafted him, he said, well, this guy has potential to be really good. But if you like watch the tape, you just never really saw it. I think all of us kind of agree on that. That was a huge swing. It seems like a big miss, and I think Goody's going to just fall out. Not, he's going to go down fighting with, this year and try to give Lucas Van Ness every opportunity. And I just don't think it's going to change. So and again, I don't know, maybe they can get something out of him. Like you would think like, God, he can at least be like some kind of situational guy on like certain downs and distances or in times of game. But I just don't know how you can get him on the field if you really want your best 4 or 5 out there. But real quick, going back to Kenny Clark, I think he's a big piece. If Kenny Clark improves and gets back to the old Kenny Clark, like this defensive line is a whole different story. So what do you see maybe in Kenny Clark to get him back to that? Like, what does Kenny Clark have to do to get back to where he was? Is it playing a little bit? Is he to the point of his career where he's not maybe playing that 3 and maybe playing more down in those A gaps in the 1 tech, Riley? Or where do you see Kenny Clark of, yes, maybe it's not prime Kenny Clark from 4 or 5 years ago, but at least like a really good, solid Kenny Clark? Because we can't have the same one as last year, because that was a lot of useless games of just like a body out there. Like where do you get the best Kenny Clark to kind of at least raise the floor maybe a little bit on this defensive line?
Yeah, I guess you said it's the 1 tech like we've talked about. That's where since Slayton's gone, that's where the opening's at. I think that's what he has to thrive at. I think he has to take on being that run stuffer, take up double teams. But like he just has to get back to having a little bit of explosion, because like we said, he just didn't do anything last year. Maybe it was his injury, his toe injury. He didn't have the same push off or whatever, but I think Devonte Wyatt last year put enough on film that teams are going to maybe slide interior to him, and he's going to be the main guy they're worried about, because like we keep saying, their edges kind of have not produced. So I think Devonte Wyatt's going to be like every other team's like biggest worry. Well, Kenny Clark's got to get back to either beating that center or that other guard, whatever, one-on-one. He's got to be that guy. I think he's going to get plenty of one-on-one mismatches, and maybe he's not old. What is he, 29, 30? He's been in the league forever, but he's only like 30 years old. So you wouldn't think he's fallen off that much, but I don't know. He's got to be able to produce, and he's got to win one-on-one battles, and he's got to be the leader of the house in that interior defensive line group, which I think he does possess those leadership skills. But yeah, he's got to take away the run game, but just keep saying he's got to win one-on-one pass rush, because he's going to be one-on-one. He didn't do enough. The focus is going to be on Devonte Wyatt, I would assume.
Do you think if they move him to that nose tackle 1 tech position, it would result in what am I trying to say? Less snaps for him, a smaller share of snaps for him, maybe rotating him in and out with Stackhouse, because I know sounds like they're kind of high on Stackhouse, kind of filling that TJ Slayton role too.
Yeah, I would, if it was me, if I was personally going to do it, I would have him in on obviously first and second down. And then, I mean, if he needs a break, yeah, bring in Brinson, bring in Stackhouse, whatever you want to do. But I think where his snaps would be limited, just based on what last year and what it showed me, if they can get teams in the third, 6, 7 plus where it's passing situations, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a bunch of Brooks and Wyatt, because Carl Brooks is by far the second best interior pass rusher just based off last year, with obviously Wyatt being one. He's obviously, you can tell I'm pretty high on him pass rush wise, but yeah, I don't know. That's what I would do. I don't know how they view it, but they don't really need to limit his snaps if that's going to be his role. But I guess I just don't really know what they view his role as. But yeah, Brooks is definitely, last year at least, Brooks was definitely a way better pass rusher than he was.
So, follow-up question for either of you. What is there like a certain like benchmark stat wise that you would want to see him get back to in turn to like sacks, like 5 sacks or something, to say like, yeah, he had a better year or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say sacks would be nice, but I even think just pressures. Like I feel like he didn't even create any pressure from the inside. If you look back at all the pressures created, at least for my eyes, I feel like a lot of that came from Brooks and then when Wyatt was healthy. So like to me, I think that's what it would start. If you can get a one tech to kind of complement those guys, because I think if he can play down at the one, it can play all 3 downs. I think like let's be honest, Carl Brooks, he's not going to play nose tackle. Devonte Wyatt, he's not going to play nose tackle. Those guys are like natural, like those defensive tackles playing, outside shade of the guard or tackle, and that's where you're going to get your best with them. So I think if you can get that, like, to me, get pressure from the inside and the interior there from a guy like Kenny Clark that has that potential, I think that would be good. Yes, sacks should certainly be nice. I don't think he's going to get any more than like, 6, 7. Like that's probably like a really good year, I would say, from like a nose tackle, unless you're Chris Jones or like one of the elite freaks in the league. And then maybe a little bit better against the run too. And if he is good against the run, then he is going to play all 3 downs. And I think that kind of gives Hafley a little bit more of like what he can do on the defensive line and kind of the rotations that he can play. Because that's where I saw him too, and that's why I asked the question. Because I think Kenny Clark, if he can play that one technique and let those other guys kind of be where they're naturally better at, I think that raises the floor of the defensive line and maybe even the ceiling as well. But like, yeah, for Kenny Clark, it's all about just any sort of pressure. There was so many games where he just didn't get anything, like no push or whatnot, and that makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean,
The one,
go ahead, Riley.
the one thing I want to add to that quick is, and just on Kenny Clark's side of it, is last year was his first year in his career that he played in the forefront. He's been a 3-front guy. He's not like the Hafley, I want to shoot out field type situation. So it'll be interesting to me. He can play more that way if he does go to one tech. And it'll be interesting to me if Hafley lets him and sees like he's not that penetration type guy. He's literally not. He's been in the league for 10 years now. The first 9, he played one way. So it's just maybe that's not his skill set. So, and then I don't know. Maybe if they let him play at the one tech and play the way he did, he can just eat up blockers in first and second down. Like I said, I think he'd excel. And you let him tee off on those third line situations against the center or guard, and he's actually getting 1-on-1. But maybe a forefront's just not him, and that's why his production, because the style of Hafley versus what he did the first 9 years, where they kind of just sat there and took it, just completely different. So maybe it's just not his skill set or what he's just good at.
Yeah, Colin, you brought up the pressures before, just adding pressures. Just one other quick note I had was that in 2023, between Gary and Clark combined, they had 132 pressures combined. Last year, they only had 83. So, yeah, increasing those pressures definitely, I think, would be a good start there.
Yeah, and it's funny talking about Rashawn Gary too. I know you were mentioning him earlier. Just like looking stats wise, and just I know like PFF has some good stats of like your pass rush win rate and your run blocking win rate. Like last year was one of his best years of his career so far of like his run defense and stopping the run, but then it was also one of the worst. It was his worst year of his career of like rushing the quarterback. So I think it's just like for Rashawn Gary, I think it's kind of finding that happy medium. I think for me too, when he had his injury, I think that's where he's like dipped as well. Like he has not been the same explosive like Rashawn Gary as he was a few years ago. I don't know if we're going to see that, and what the Packers are paying him. They're paying him to be an elite dude to get after. Like a 10 sack season needs to be a minimum of what he's like making per year. And I don't know. I think it might once again have to be kind of a team effort. I think it's going to be a group effort of a bunch of guys in the 6 to 4 sack range potentially from the defensive line. And then I think the linebackers that we'll talk about next week would not be shocked if both of those guys are in the top 3 or top 4 of sacks on the team, depending on like what Halfley wants to do with them. But sticking with kind of that one tech, because I know that that's really where the Packers are thin. And I know that's where Riley talked a little bit earlier about who is going to be the backup. 4 rookies right now among the defensive line. We talked about Brinson and Stackhouse on the inside, and then Sorrell and Colin Oliver on the outside. I'll start with either one of you. What role do you see all 4 of these rookies playing this year? Because I think it could be interesting. Maybe at like towards the end of the season, after at the end of the season they say you aren't rookies anymore. By that time you're in it. Where do you think they can carve out a role, or where would you expect them to carve out a role? And then kind of going off of that, which one are you most excited about? And I know we've mentioned all 4 of them right now, but just you personally, of those 4 rookies and maybe they're fit to make an impact this year, like who are you most excited about on paper that you think can have the biggest impact on that defense this year?
I'll let Riley take this one first.
Oh, you want me to go? So I think Colin Oliver's a lock to make the team just for special teams and maybe pass rush. Like he hasn't been a pure pass rusher in even college, so he's going to have a year to learn that. But that he's a special teams guy, so I think that's what his role is. Obviously, what I've said earlier, I'm big on Barron Sorrell. I think he'd be the one that could have the biggest role this year. Watching film and clips, Walter Brinson does some shit that is like really good as a depth guy. And I think he just never really got that chance to be the guy at Georgia. So I don't even know what his ceiling is. So he might be my biggest like upside guy where I think he could be a breakout dude, but we just talked about, he's behind Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt for this upcoming season. It's like, I don't know how big of an impact he can make. Zaire Stackhouse, I don't know. It's going to be between him and Colby Wooden and who's going to be the 5th interior defensive lineman. Over the years, they've shown they only keep 5. They only want to. I don't know it just depends how well he does in training camp and preseason, if they think they can keep him on the roster as like a practice squad guy or not. But yeah, just like I said, I think Barron Sorrell is the one that can have the biggest impact this year just because the lack of edge rusher, like legit edge guy opposite of Gary, like we've talked about. And I don't know. I don't think he's going to be a killer pass rush guy. I don't think his athleticism or body's built that way, but I think he might be able to step in and be the best run stopping edge opposite of Gary on 1st and 2nd down. So I think that might be his role. But yeah, I don't know. I would say Walter Brinson to me, I think, has the highest upside because of the flashes and the film stuff I have seen, and the fact that he just literally has not really gotten a shot to be that guy. But this year, I'd say Sorrell probably has the chance to be the most effective.
Okay, so I had the same kind of thought train as Riley. He just elaborated it a lot better than I probably could. I don't know that much about Walter Brinson, and I've said this a couple times on this show now. I was bought in from Barron Sorrell right from the go, from the press conference, and seeing him walk out at the draft and everything like that. I just love his attitude. I think he'll make the most of his opportunity, and who knows, maybe he'll surprise some people and even take the Lucas Van Ness down the depth chart a little bit if he doesn't step his game up at all.
All right, we're going to do one segment here of fact checking because I was like, who the hell is Walter Brinson? Warren Brinson, by the way.
Warren
It's not.
Brinson, sorry.
Let's not.
Mr. Brinson.
Let's not get a new your guys are creating a new Madden player right now that's going to be on the Packers roster that's combining everyone. But yeah, I agree as well. I don't know. Are you just like intrigued of like Stackhouse can just be a dude that just like plays only on like first and second down or like certain rundowns of like him just eat up double teams and hope Cooper and Quay can maybe make more tackles at the line or hey, behind the line of scrimmage. I don't know. Like he seems like a guy that he's got a very easy role carved out of what he has to do and like what they would expect of him and come in and do it if he makes a team. Like you said, he's got to make the team first, but I feel like in terms of like what his expectations are and like the weight on his shoulders, it's like, dude, just be big, eat up blocks and free up our linebackers to make plays and pretty simple. But yeah, I don't know like what his his upside is. But yeah,
I think he's the biggest guy on the roster right now. So
yeah, it's a big need and like,
But that was the funniest thing in Georgia when you watch those two play together. Brinson's smaller, but he was better at taking up double teams. Stackhouse actually like fucked shit up in the backfield. Like he penetrated. So I think that's why the Packers like him. But he actually played better as a 3-tech the more I watch it. So I don't know what they're gonna do with him, but he might flash too. I don't know.
yeah, looking up so run defense, it's like rush defense stop rate or something like that. I don't know the exact like stat that they do. Like this is like very analytical stuff that I was trying to look down of just like the Packers rush defense. Number 1 league in rush defense stop rate from interior defensive linemen last year, TJ Slayton. So so basically of like the snaps he played and like compared to like any time he would like get a stop or a tackle or something, they have like stats broken down into that. He was number 1 in the league for interior defensive tackles, not the full defensive line. So definitely maybe not like a flashy player that you have to replace, but I think it's a role player that someone's got to step up, and it seems like it's going to be kind of like a group effort. All right, so a few more things before we get into the final drive. So I'm going to jump right into it. Pressures and sacks. I know pressures is a big thing that is talked about. It seems like with this Packers team, if you're not going to get a sack, at least get pressures. Who will lead the team in pressures and who will lead the team in sacks? And if you do not think it's going to be from this unit, you can say that. If you want to say an external player on the defense that's not on this defensive line unit, that's completely fine. I will allow that. But I don't care who goes first. You can be the same person too, but from this defensive line unit, or if it's not on the defense overall, who leads the team in overall pressures and who leads the team in sacks in 2025?
I'll go with
Devontae Wyatt and Devontae Wyatt.
Okay.
Easy.
I was gonna go Rashawn Gary and Rashawn Gary.
Okay. Devontae Wyatt, Rashawn Gary, Rashawn. See, I think Rashawn Gary is going to lead the team in pressures, but I think a healthy Devontae Wyatt could lead the team in sacks. Because Rashawn Gary is like the guy that he does like 99% of the work, it seems like at times, where he'll get off the ball, looks good, maybe creates pressures, but then he doesn't get the sack. I don't know how many games I've seen of that of Rashawn Gary where he just doesn't come away from sacks. But Devontae Wyatt's got to stay. I think if Devontae Wyatt stays healthy, I would not be shocked if he's pushing double digits and up there as well. So, all right. So I did research of all the returning players of just this defensive line. So of those 45 sacks last year, 32 and a half of them were from the defensive line and edge players from 2024. So 32 and a half is my over-under of sacks from just this defensive line unit in 2025. Do they go more than that or do they go less than that for 2025? 32 and a half.
I'm going to go over. I'm going to believe that the new D-line coach is going to make a difference with this group, and I'm going to believe that until I see otherwise. So I'm going to go over.
I mean, yeah, I don't know how you go under that number. It's like it's just fucking 2 sacks a game and you're over. I don't understand. Yeah, you have to go over.
I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna go big time over. I think this group's gonna get into the 40s this year, and I think the reason because of that is I think there's gonna be so many different looks with hopefully two athletic freak linebackers behind that. I think that Hafley is going to bring all over the place as well, and I think that might free up some spots and a healthy Devontae Wyatt, hopefully a resurgent Kenny Clark, and then goddamn Rashawn Gary. Can we stop doing pressures and actually get some sacks? He has to. He has to, right? And who knows? LVN, all we ask is like 3 sacks, 4 sacks. Give us that in freaking 17 games. Like, can you do 1 sack every 3 games or 4 games? I think, right?
My question to you guys that I wanted to ask this entire time is what are the actual chances Lucas Van Ness gets fucking just released halfway through training camp because he's the 7th or the 6th best defensive end? Because he's gonna be. I don't know what his money is and guarantees, but like I don't. Does it really matter? Like we said, dude. Like at least Hafley kind of said last year, Brenton Cox is fucking better than you. Terrell, they're gonna keep on the roster. Still have Gary and Enikbare. He's already the 5th. If Colin Oliver is better, and especially he's going to play special teams, like, are we keeping fucking 6 ends? Like, what are we doing? Van Ness is the worst one.
I mean, I don't think the chances are good, but I would say it's not 0.
Yeah, I would say it's not 0. I would think if Goody did it, that would be like a boss ass bitch move from Goody. If he like just falls on the sword there and like, hey, I made a mistake. Like, this is all on me. This didn't pan out. I'm just gonna get done with it. Let's move on. I would like respect that and like wouldn't like I think we all would be happy with it. Will he do it? No. Like, to me, he's going to be on the roster and he's gonna probably see like 20 or 30 snaps like week 1. And you're like gonna forget that he's out there. You're just going to see like a blur of number 90 like every once in a while of whoever our week 1 opponent is. And be like, oh, yep, he's out there. He's just not doing anything on the other side.
Oh, I'll fucking notice him. Don't you worry.
I'm just be the only player that Riley fought on defense the whole game.
That's gonna be a new segment every week is Riley just spotlighting Lucas Van Ness like every single snap of his game and talking through it play by play there.
It's him on defense and Musgrave on offense just fucking pissing me off.
All right, last question I have before we move on. Same as last week. After this game is over, this unit as a whole, interior defensive line, edge rushers, will they be the reason that you win a game? Or will they be a reason that they cost you a game in 2025?
Boy, I don't know how to answer this one. I felt more confident with the secondary last week. I'm gonna channel my inner optimist here and say again, because of the new D-line coach this year, they'll be the reason they win you a game. But I'm reserving the right to backtrack on that as soon as it doesn't happen.
With an asterisk next to it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd go the complete opposite. They're definitely gonna break our hearts. There's gonna be so many fucking possession or plays where like it's just fucking 7 seconds in the pocket and they're gonna have to sit in zone and that's gonna get fucking just picked apart and there's absolutely no pressure.
Yeah, I've went back and forth on this too. Because I think almost in a way, and this is like me like a cop out too. Like I think in a way you can't like not include your 2 linebackers, at least one of the linebackers with this group. Like I think if you looked at like the front 7 as a whole, I would say like win you a game because I truly think Hafley is going to hopefully bring Quay Walker and Cooper all over the place on different parts of the game. But I think if you just look at this defensive line and edge rushing unit, just them, I will like sadly agree and say I will say they will cost you a game as well. Until it's like proven wrong, it just feels like every big game against like playoff teams with winning records, because Mike, you brought the stat up earlier, they're good against bad teams. The teams that they like should be better against, they are. But when you need them to make a play against a team that's going to be in the playoff, or a divisional team like the Vikings and the Lions that they just never did, they just seem like they never made a play, or never made that sack, or never, got a stop on, 3rd and short or something, and creating some penetration. So to me, until I'm proven wrong, I say that they're going to cost us a game. However, my asterisk is if you put in the linebackers in there with that group, and how I hope Hafley uses them and brings them all over the place, if he's able to, if they can stay healthy, then I could say that they could win you a game. But I know that's, like I said, maybe a cop-out and not a complete answer. But
I would agree with that 100% on if you're talking about edge. If you're talking about Quay's still going to fucking lose you a game as well. So that's 50-50 for me.
that is true. Yeah.
Is that the third player you're going to keep an eye out for in addition to Van Ness and Musgrave?
That one might be the most fun one of him. Just he could break down the freaking all 22 and just watch Quay just get completely lost time after time.
Boy, he just makes 3 plays and just gets completely lost like he's never played football before in his entire life. I don't understand what he's doing half the time.
Well, guess what? Maybe we'll do that next week. Maybe we'll send Riley to go watch some film and break down his 3 most frustrating Quay Walker games or something from last year. But okay, well, that wraps up defensive line. Let's move on to the final drive rankings, because this was a fun one. So basically, we each had $50 million, and we had to build our defensive line. So when I say defensive line, a forefront, so we have 2 edge rushers, 2 interior guys. I'm not going to be picky. If you want to do like has to be a 1, has to be a 3, it has to be on the edge, we can play that game. But I just want like at least 2 defensive tackles and 2 like edge guys. Like that's completely fine with me. Have $50 million. We went on overthecap.com. We use both like just what their average year is in their contract, but we also double checked. And then also like what I think they're doing in 2025. And I think all of us were under for both of them. So with that being said, here is our final drive. Each of our defensive line. I'm going to switch it up this week. I'm going to go last. I usually go first. We're going to switch it up. Mike, you usually go last, so you're going to go first this week, Mike. So tell me your 4 defensive linemen that you have on a $50 million budget for the 2025 season that you are elated about, stoked. We've seen the text. We are excited to see what you have. Here we go.
I love this group. All right, so I went by their 2025 salary. I did not do average. I went 2025 salary. So my edge rushers, Aiden Hutchinson, $5.5 million this year. Second, Will Anderson Jr., $3.9 million this year. On the interior, we went with Jalen Carter, $2.7 million this year. And I needed to figure out those numbers so I could get this big kahuna here. I wanted Chris Jones. He's getting $28.8 million this year. So that put me at $40.9 million, well under the $50 million budget. I love that group for that money.
Say it one more time for us, too.
Aiden Hutchinson, Will Anderson Jr. at edge, Jalen Carter, and Chris Jones on the interior.
Okay. That gets you a lot of wins, I think. And it's well under, almost 10 million. So I would say you would get an A+ passing grade for that if we were teachers. So well done. Well done, you. Thank you. All right, Riley, top that one. He's like, here's the exact same 4 guys.
Same exact 3 guys. So I got Will Anderson and Hutchinson at end as well. So you can just copy that one. And then I don't know how. Yeah, Jalen Carter at my 3 tech, because he's probably the best 3 tech in the NFL since Aaron Donald retired. Oh, you already got that money as well. And then my 1 tech, a true run stuffer. I love him. Sexy Dexter Lawrence from the Giants, my 1 tech, and he is only making I think it's 15.5 this year with the 500, so like 16 million this year. So I have a lot of money to play with. My twist was, all right, I got extra money. I'm gonna get a fucking backup edge guy and a backup defensive tackle. So I also threw in Nolan Smith as my third ends, breakout in the playoffs for the Eagles last year. And I got Kobe Turner, the pass rush specialist for the Rams inside. He had 8 sacks as a rookie and 9 sacks last year. So yeah, same 3 starters as Mike, and then I put a run stuffer in there for Dexter Lawrence, and then my little twist was I got extra money. Let's spend it on 2 young guys that just make plays.
All right, Riley doing some extra credit.
Yeah, I know. I almost feel like it's going to be almost like you two versus me with some crossovers there. If I don't have any of those guys, so I went in the realm of like I want to get after the quarterback. So I tried matching up just with production and sacks, what we saw this last year. Had to give a little bit of a shout out to the wife, and that side of the family on the Broncos. Probably the best defensive line or one of the best defensive lines this past year. Nick Bonito came out of nowhere. Yes, I know he's technically an outside linebacker, but if he's going to line up in 60 snaps on defense, like 57 of them, he's like coming off the edge to rush the passer. So I'm counting him as an edge rusher. He was on over the cap as edge rusher. He averaged $1.45 million a year in this contract. I think this year he's going to make like close to 5 or 6, but 13 and a half sacks in 2004. That was third in the league. So speed rusher, dude just constantly got off after the quarterback. On the opposite end of him, Mike's guy, his dream scenario, who he wants with the Packers. I'm going the leader in the league of sacks last year, Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals. He averaged about $21 million a year. He's actually, I think, less than that. When you look at 2025 numbers, he was like just at like 18 and a half or something like that. 17 and a half sacks in 2024. So if you look at those two, that's 31 sacks between my edge rushers there of just getting after the quarterback. Then we're going with the rookie last year from the Rams, offensive tackle Braden Fisk on the inside as well. $2.35 million a year, 8.5 sacks in 2024, 2 forced fumbles. So I got 3 dudes that can get after the quarterback. I want a big guy as well. So my fourth guy, Jeffrey Simmons from the Titans, $23.5 million a year. He had a career high 76 tackles last year. Also had a few sacks, 5 sacks. 14th in the NFL for defensive tackles with a 73.4 run defensive grade. Yes, I did my homework as well. 41 run stops from interior defensive tackle. That was tied for third in the league. So he's my run stuffer on the inside. All of that got me $48.3 million, so under the 50 mark. So Trey Hendrickson and Nick Bonito on the outside, Jeffrey Simmons and Braden Fisk on the inside. So I'll be honest, I'm kind of surprised, but you guys got good value as well. Like, I thought the best value personally was Bonito. Of just like looking at the average, like $1.45 million a year for 13 and a half sacks. Like, sign me up for that. But I like your guys' team as well. I think that's going to be tough to pick from, but Mike's going to have to get those up on the socials and shoot us a vote. And tell us what you would do. Go to overthecap.com. It's pretty easy to find. You can switch by position. You can also switch by the contract year, a couple drop-down arrows. Tell us if you had $50 million, how would you spend it on the defensive line? If you have leftover money like Riley, you can add a couple more as well. Mike could have added a couple more with his $9 million and change that he had to work with. But Mike will get that up on the socials, on X, on Facebook. So, yeah, interact with that. Let us know. Tell us what you'll do. If you hate ours and want to come up with something better, we would love to see that. Because we love all of our fans. So before we wrap up, any closing thoughts? I know schedule release is coming out in a couple days. Going to be excited to talk about that next week. My big one, and I'll let you guys wrap things up too. How about the Dallas Mavericks with like a 1.6 or 1.7% chance of winning the lottery? They win the freaking lottery to get Cooper Flagg. So I know they got a lot of shit for trading away Luka to get was it essentially Anthony Davis and some other guys. But now if you look at it, Cooper Flegg and Anthony Davis, trade doesn't look so bad, but that was just crazy of all those games they lost at the end of the year to even get to that point of the play-in game and not make it, and then boom, they get Cooper Flegg. Pretty damn lucky, but that was crazy, I thought, for me.
Yeah, the NBA is definitely rigged. My thing is, and then we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this next week, but I'll just make a prediction because I don't. The Packers. We talked about the Packers and Bears playing that Saturday. Does that not scream that the Packers? There's going to be 3 games. They already announced the Sunday night game, but does the Packers and Bears playing on Saturday not say they're both going to play on Christmas Day as well? That's why they're playing on Saturday, right? So that's okay.
Yeah.
Crazy. Man.
Basically, how they did it last year is probably how they're gonna do it again this year. I would imagine.
Play one of the Eagles or Commanders, right? And they would just kind of flip flop there. That would be fun and entertaining.
Yeah.
Mike, any closing thoughts?
Stanley Cup playoffs continue to be just freaking awesome. A lot of overtime games. Just some incredible endings. And also, since I'm a golf fan, I got to throw this in there. It's PGA Championship week. So excited for that.
All right. And we'll just throw it out there right now. Aston Villa over AFC Bournemouth. 1-0. Got the W. Collins Club over Riley's Club. Moving into 6th place in the Premier League, still fighting. Hey, Riley, I think you're pretty much already locked in Europe, at least last year, or for next year, right?
Yeah.
Top 7, top 8, so you have that to fight for. But all right, well, thanks for joining us once again on the Dairyland Drive. Next week, we're going to talk, finish up the defense, talk a little bit linebackers and the schedule release. But thank you always for joining us. Make sure to like us on whatever you listen to your podcasts on, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. We're going to try to keep getting the video up, keep posting these once a week. Thank you and appreciate you all for listening. Give us a like, tell us how we're doing, give us a follow, share us. We want as many people as possible to listen to this. So once again, thanks for joining us. We will see you next week. Have a good night. And Mike, as always,
Love you guys.